Good evening. If everybody could grab a seat and people can feel free to move up if they wish. My name is Jeff Cox. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Faculty Affairs, and my office has been tasked by the Chancellor and the Provost with the academic review of the School of Journalism and Mass Communication that is currently underway. I'm joined this evening by three of my colleagues. I'll introduce them and then explain their role a little bit later. We have Professor Bob Spencer from Psychology and Neuroscience, Deborah Hollis from University Libraries, and Sam Fitch from Political Science. My home department is English. So we are part of the faculty committee that is given the job of initiating a review of program discontinuance, and I'm going to be explaining that and other aspects of the process. This is an open forum. We are here to listen to you, and we're going to try to get to you as rapidly as possible. But I thought it might be useful to give you some background about how we got here and how the process works, because why would anybody know how universities do their business in the strange ways we do them? And then we'll open the floor to your comments. Just for your information, we are taping this session. This is not the press taping the session. We're archiving all of our open meetings so that they're available for review as we're going through this process. You'll also be pleased to know that enterprising journalism students are drawing upon these tapes for projects they're doing in their classes. So we're glad to be able to supply them with raw materials for the reporting they're doing on this process. So there's been obviously a lot of concern raised by the announcement that a review for program discontinuance for the School of Journalism and Mass Communication was initiated by the Chancellor at the beginning of this academic year. One thing to note before we go any further is no one has made any decisions about whether the School of Journalism and Mass Communication will be discontinued. This is not a phony process. I wouldn't ask my colleagues to spend the hours and hours they are spending on this if it was a phony process. The Chancellor and the Provost have genuinely not made up their minds about what they are going to do. But if they are going to move forward to reconfigure the school or to create a new school, part of the process we have to follow under the rules of the Regents is this process of program discontinuance, which again I'll describe in more detail. It's also important for you to know, in case you have students attending the school as well as being alumni of the school, that the campus has guaranteed all admitted students, including the pre-admit students to the School of Journalism, that they will be able to complete their degrees. So we will keep the academic programs for the school up and running until our current students have worked their way through their degree programs. That is for probably for approximately 3 years. So even if we were to decide today, which we couldn't, but even if we were to decide today that the school is to be closed, it would be a long process before we would actually get to that point. So how did we get here? At the beginning of the academic year, the Chancellor wrote to myself and to the Provost asking that 2 processes be set in motion. One of these was the creation of an exploratory committee to look into the possibilities of creating new programs in the broad area of information and communication and technology that includes journalism, digital media, digital humanities, digital arts, computer science, information systems in the business school. It includes a wide range of activities on campus and probably some activities we don't do on campus and maybe some things we haven't even imagined. He's asked that committee, the exploratory committee, to report to the Provost at the end of this semester with some high-level ideas about how the university might move forward to better serve our students and to better fulfill our research and academic missions in this broad area, which has been labeled information communications and technology, but as I said, obviously includes a wide range of other terms. That is a faculty committee chaired by Merrill Leslie, a professor of theater and dance, former interim chancellor of the Colorado Springs campus, former Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, and former Dean at San Diego State of a School of Professional Education that included their journalism program. So he has experience with running a journalism program. He has a very strong faculty group working with him. They have the exciting task of trying to figure out what the future is for this campus in its both educational and intellectual mission in this broad area we're investigating. At the same time, the Chancellor initiated a process that is mandated by the Board of Regents that has the unfortunate name of program discontinuance. It would probably be better to call it program reinvention, or we could come up with some other name for it, but this is the name that the Regents gave it. Under that policy, an officer of the university, in this case the Chancellor, can initiate a review of any academic program to see whether it should be continued in its current form or not. Under campus policy, when an officer initiates that process, a committee is put together. That committee is made up in the first instance of a standing committee that handles all academic program review. You may or may not know that all programs on the campus undergo a review every 7 years. So there's a reviewing cycle of every department, every school and college on the campus on a review cycle. And there's a faculty committee that conducts that review. So we just last week began review of the entire College of Engineering, for example. We are finishing a review of all the units involved in the physical sciences that was conducted last year, and the final reports are being written this fall. So that committee, of which these 3 faculty members are a part, is impaneled as the Program Discontinuance Committee. My colleagues didn't ask to be on that committee. They didn't have the idea that journalism should be looked at for program discontinuance. They are an investigative body that are here out of the goodness of their hearts and putting a lot of hard work into this because they're part of this standing group, which has a total of 11 faculty members on it. In addition to that standing committee, a number of people are added to that group for this process. That's the Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Community Engagement, currently Robert Boswell. That's to make sure that if we are looking at discontinuing a program, that we take into consideration its impact on the diversity of the campus. We do not wish to harm diversity by shutting down a program. It includes the Dean of the Graduate School to make sure that we are taking into consideration issues of concern to the graduate students and the graduate school as a whole, and the Associate Vice Chancellor for Undergraduate, and the current Dean of the Graduate School is John Stevenson, and then the Associate Vice Chancellor for Undergraduate Education, Michael Grant, obviously to look after our undergraduate students. So that committee is impaneled to begin an investigation. Under Regent policy, an officer asks program discontinuance to be undertaken under 3 possible rubrics. One is education. We should discontinue the current educational programs we have. The Chancellor did not ask us to look at that particular aspect. One is budget. He did ask us to look at budget matters. There are a set of issues under the budget that are set by the Board of Regents. They are largely matters of fact. The appropriate officers on campus have been asked to supply the committee with that information. If people have things to say about the budget, we're happy to hear about it. But for the most part, these are issues of student credit hour generation, costs, money coming in, money going out, and so on. The third category is strategic realignment. That is the list of issues that is on the sheet that has been distributed as you've come into the room. We are particularly interested in hearing your thoughts on these categories. These, again, are categories set by the board that the Program Discontinuance Committee has to take into consideration as it makes its deliberations. We're happy to hear whatever you have to say, but if you can particularly address these issues, it's useful for them as they think through their report. On that sheet as well is an email address that you can use if you don't get a chance to speak this evening, or you have something that you think of later, or something you didn't want to say in public. You can feel free to email us. If you know of friends, fellow graduates who didn't have an opportunity to be here this evening, please tell them to contact us using that email. We've received a fairly high amount of email traffic since the call for this meeting went out, so your fellow alums are being heard. The committee is reviewing those emails as they come in, so that's another way you can contact us. This group has met in open meetings such as this with faculty. All faculty were invited, but it was obviously primarily faculty from the School of Journalism and Mass Communication. 2 sessions, open sessions, were held with faculty. 2 open sessions for students, again, largely students from the School of Journalism and Mass Communication. This open meeting with alumni. They, in addition, have met with the dean of the school and with others, other interested parties. The doctoral program is run through the school, through the College of Arts and Sciences, for example, so they'll be meeting with the people responsible for that doctoral program in Arts and Sciences. So they are currently in the phase of gathering information. I chair the committee of which they are a part. My office is also staffing the exploratory committee, so we are the kind of gathering point for these 2 processes. There's a certain awkwardness about this committee. Has a very tight timeline by Regent rules. It has 60 days from the time it was put in process by the Chancellor, so the process began September 1st. It must report to the Provost by October 31st. Happens to be Halloween, but we won't make anything of that. The Provost then has 30 days to make a recommendation to the Chancellor. The Chancellor has 30 days to make a recommendation to the President. The President has 30 days to make a recommendation to the Board. The Board acts when it is ready to act. The Board of Regents is the only body that has the right to discontinue a program, so it doesn't make any difference what anybody says up until the point that the board takes an action. Again, at that point, if discontinuance was the order of the day, it would take us a long time before we would actually get to a point where the doors would close on the current school. We have obligations to our students. Under the policy, we also have obligations to the tenured faculty within the school, an obligation to try to find them another tenure home, either on this campus or on one of the other University of Colorado campuses. It is a bit awkward that this committee must complete its work before the exploratory committee has to complete its work. It has a longer time frame. But that's the way it is. It would all be a lot nicer if we knew where we were headed before we knew what decisions we were making here, but the committee does not have that luxury. So we are happy to answer any questions we can, but our primary purpose is to hear from you, your thoughts about the school, about its strengths, its weaknesses, what the university should do as it's looking at this process. We have 2 microphones. We invite all of you that wish to step up to the microphones. It would be great if you could identify yourself and tell us when you graduated, and if you want, tell us what you're currently doing, if it's related, and tell us what you want us to hear.
We have to start somewhere, right?
Please.
Is this working?
Yep.
I'm afraid my comments don't speak much to your required issues, but I do know this much. If 4 is realized, 3 needs not be said, even. If there is excellence, the reputation will follow. My name is J.P. Mclaughlin, class of '67. I graduated with a B.S. in journalism. I went on to study under a Ford Fellowship for another year at Stanford University, and where I received an MA in communications. For the last, I'm fading, for the last 43 years, I've worked in newspaper and magazines, journalism as a reporter and an editor, and as a college teacher for 5 of those years. it seems to me that you all got off on the wrong foot. Perhaps the discontinuance phrase was one of the reasons. But all this business about discontinuing the J School seems to be a study of throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Because newspapers are dying, you all seem to think that journalism is dying. It isn't, not in the sense of accurate and ethical reporting of events by those trained how to do it right. Trained like myself and several lifelong friends of mine, some of whom are here tonight under the tutelage of teachers like A. Gale Waldrop, Bob Rode, and John Mitchell back in the mid-'60s, when there were only about 60 some of us in the entire J School. Where news appears as immaterial, whether it be online news sites, blogs, 180-character Twitters, or old-fashioned newspapers. The changing technology, which seems to have so alarmed the people in this institution, is merely a change in the tools that journalists use, not in their most basic methods of news gathering. The demand for a fourth estate to keep a weather eye on government and corporate activities is more important now than it ever has been. We won't get it done by not training people how to report and write both accurately and ethically. We won't get it, excuse me, the only rational place to do that is in a journalism school, among teachers and mentors who have worked in the field, know how it's done. I've seen it from both sides as a student right here and as assistant professor of journalism for 5 years at Metro State College of Denver. Yet it sounds for all the world like you have shunned the most important piece of the solution by excluding anyone from the School of Journalism and Mass Communications from participating in the very committee that will decide the future of media studies at CU. This is short-sighted and mean-spirited to a point of absolute irrationality. Yes, there should be more than just journalism people involved in this decision, and I know you're all draftees, and I appreciate the work you're going to do and are doing, but to call the presence of journalism people on that committee a conflict of interest beggars the rational mind. Has postmodernism so infiltrated higher education these days that you no longer consider truth important? It may be tough to get at, but it's out there. What you need is a few good people to do the hard digging and then point it out to you. A lot of those truth seekers do science these days, and a lot of them used to do journalism. We need more of those, not fewer. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you.
Response? No? Okay. Hello, my name is Linda Shoemaker. I'm the president of the Brett Family Foundation here in Boulder, which donates to the university and to the journalism school. I am a 1969 graduate of the CU Journalism and Mass Communication program, and I worked in the newspaper business for about 10 years as a reporter, editor, and then owner of a small weekly newspaper up in the Colorado mountains. Then I attended law school and got diverted from the true path. But I am back because I'm very concerned about this, and I'm very concerned about obviously what's happening in journalism in the world. But I agree that journalism is not dead. Newspapers in the printed format may be dead. They certainly are dying, but journalism needs to continue. I've spent some time, because of my interest in what's going on here, talking to the teachers up at the journalism school, Dean Paul Vokes and Chancellor Phil DeStefano, who's an old friend of mine from when I was president of the school board, and he was the education dean up at CU. Anyway, I've also been auditing a couple classes in the journalism, undergraduate in the journalism school. So the conclusion I've formed is that it's critical for the traditional values of journalism to be incorporated into these new media models of journalism for the 21st century, as we all hear, in order for citizens to be well informed in our democracy. So journalism does need to be taught, not merely information science or communication or media studies. Journalism needs to continue to be a vibrant part of the curriculum at this university and the Boulder campus. Now, I'm encouraged by some of the classes that are being taught at the SJMC now under Dean Vokes, and many of the things in the newly revised curriculum. I'm really excited about the entrepreneurial projects that are housed at the J School, such as the Digital Test Kitchen and the iNews Network. Now, that said, I believe that the SJMC has been slow to respond to changes in the marketplace, and I support the discontinuation of the school, provided that a vibrant journalism program is recreated in the proposed new College of Information Communications and Technology, or whatever. I fully support Chancellor DeStefano in his drive to create interdisciplinary colleges. Journalism is ripe for that new approach because these students also need technology and business skills to gain jobs in the new media economy. Now, I would certainly feel more confident about the future of journalism education on the campus if the name journalism were included in the name of the exploratory committee. And I will certainly take that up with the exploratory committee, and I hope you'll let us know when their meetings are going to be. I just got this list of 9 items. I didn't speak directly to them, but definitely number 3, I believe that by reinventing the school, you're going to enhance the campus's reputation. It's going to be a more excellent program than we currently have in place, and I believe there will be more marketplace demand for the new school. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And it did, in your comments, remind me of one thing. So the exploratory committee will also be holding open meetings. We are trying to get all the open meetings for program discontinuance committee finished before we announce those so that people don't get confused about what the topic is. But there will be open sessions as well, and they'll certainly want to be hearing from you.
Hi, I'm Matt Wessel. Whoa. I'm Matt Wessels, 2009 Media Studies. Please pardon me. It's kind of the first time I've done this. I know that you gave us a history on how this came about, but what sparked that?
So in the letter from the Chancellor to the Provost and myself, he cited two things that brought him to his decision. One, so last year there was a task force convened that was co-chaired by Dean Vokes and by John Bennett, who's the director of the Alliance for Technology, Learning, and Society, the ATLAS program. That was a task force that met all last year and issued a report at the end of last year. To be frank, the report did not meet with a great deal of enthusiasm from campus governance groups, and the Chancellor was very interested in figuring out a way forward and didn't believe that that provided him with the answers he needed. At about the same time, he received a letter from the school's advisory board. That is a board made up of alums, supporters, people from the industry who are friends of the school, and they wrote to the Chancellor asking him to discontinue the current school and to reorganize it. So as a result of both an internal process and an external recommendation, he thought it was time for us to raise this question. And again, it's always important to remember it is at this point a question. There is no answer to that question.
I'm sorry, I'm still a little confused. Was it money? Unpopularity? Bad numbers? I mean,
Well, so obviously I can't answer for the Chancellor. I told you what the Chancellor,
sure.
And I'm not going to pretend to speak for the Chancellor. Those are the reasons the Chancellor cited. I can say the committee was not asked to come up with a set of budget cuts for the campus. So this is not, in the first instance, an exercise in cutting budgets. It may or may not result in budget savings, but it is, at the core of both processes is a set of primarily academic questions or intellectual questions. That is the current set of programs that we offer in the School of Journalism and Mass Communication, the best set of programs we can offer, and is the current administrative structure the best structure within which to offer them? Or is there a different configuration of programs and or a different administrative structure through which we should do that? So it is not a budget issue. It isn't a popularity contest. It is about the university trying to reinvent a portion of its operation. It is a fact that if we wish to create something new in the current circumstances, we have to undo certain things that we do. We can't just add things onto the menu that we do. Mm-hmm. And in particular, we can't move faculty from one unit to another unit, the tenured faculty, as long as that tenured entity exists. Tenure is a very important institution to universities, and one of the jobs of this committee is to make sure we're not screwing around with the tenure of their colleagues. It's just a fact. If let's say we created a incredibly exciting new entity and we invited every member of the journalism faculty to join it, if they said they didn't want to move, we can't do anything about it, except for then to take individual actions against them. So it's part of a process of the university reinventing itself.
I think then my apprehension and alarm is because of the word discontinuance, as we've mentioned, and that as long as it's a restructuring, I am in full support. Having just graduated, having gone through the programs, I felt as a younger person in today's world and consuming of the media and interacting with it, as most of us here, if not everybody in this room does, that it was very, shall I use the words behind the times? But I agree that just as we are all here because of the word discontinuance and the alarm that it causes, so the word journalism needs to be in the new creation. Because, I mean, come on, this is a journalism school. We're all here because of words, and words have their meanings. And so, without journalism, it will not do what it used to do so well. And I get what it still does. I mean, I enjoyed my time here.
Great.
Thank you very much.
And just a word on words. It is important for the committee. Committee's heard at all the meetings about the importance of the word journalism. Important to hear that you should speak to that issue. Again, no one has decided about any names. I believe there was an attempt to try to, no, as you say, words matter. No set of words is neutral. If this had been called the Journalism Exploratory Committee, it would have presupposed that we were creating another school of journalism. If it had been called the College of Information Exploratory Committee, that would have presupposed a particular model that would have been primarily based in an alliance usually between computer science and information sciences based in libraries. We don't know where we're headed. So my belief is the terms they tried to create a title that was as encompassing and as non-directive as possible, obviously leaving out the word journalism, and that has caused some concern.
You were a little taller than me. Well, I bring a unique perspective and some things I think you should hear. I was a 1966 graduate of the J School, and like John, I went on to Stanford, where I took masters in, my wife's trying to tell me something. That's what happens when you get 73, you don't know who's in charge. I studied mass communications at Stanford as a Ford Fellow, and I was really caught up in the theories of persuasion, one of my mentors, wrote one of the best all-time sellers, The Opinion Makers by Bill Rivers, was my sponsor, and I turned my theses into him. And I ended up in corporate life, even though I had been a reporter at the Denver Post, and I had worked at Survey's Journal, a very fiery business journal run by a guy named Eugene Survey who hated everybody. And it was a lot of fun being an investigative reporter. People that go through the news sequence in particular make good detectives. Lee Cubison up here, her ex-husband, now deceased, graduated, Lee, a couple of years after me. And he was much sought after by the FBI and served all over the world. Very distinguished career. The FBI tried to recruit me, Army Intelligence tried to recruit me. The military tried to recruit me and put me in charge of Stars and Stripes. But I ended up with IBM, and I've got to tell you these things. It sounds so egotistical, I'm really reluctant to do it. But I was the first executive in IBM history to reach that level in 8 years at a very young age, in my mid-30s. And I went on to ITT Corporation, where I ran 22 laboratories around the world and worked out of New York City for them. And the reason I'm telling you these things is I have hired hundreds of people, and there was nothing harder to find than well-trained journalists who knew how to research, they knew how to verify and double verify facts, they knew how to be sure they were speaking truth in balance, they knew how to look at both sides of an issue, they knew how not to intervene in the process, not to distort the mirror that they were holding up to society. They really lived up to the fourth estate ideal, which is that we are the fourth branch of government, and our job is to watch over government and to watch over large institutions that have enough power to affect society in tremendous ways. And we learned not to be propagandists. We learned that our organs were not organs of persuasion. They were organs of letting the society know what the hell was going on. And there was a time when you could trust newspapers and you knew they weren't taking one side or the other. They were just presenting you with facts as the facts stood. And that is what I would want to see the school to return to. Frankly, CU could not live up to Stanford as a mass communication school. But as a news gathering and reporting, and even as a wordsmanship school, it was parallel. And that I'm answering several of these issues on your little agenda here. It's unique in the state. For a long time, we were the only certified journalism school in the West. I don't know if that's true. But we were on a level. When I got my Ford Fellowship, I was offered Columbia, Missouri. I was offered Stanford, which I took, and Wisconsin. And at that time, CU was considered on a par with those wonderful schools. And maybe it still is. I mean, I've been away from this for over 40 years. So I can't really speak to how it exists today. But if I were to reform it, I would focus on news gathering, reportage. I would focus on the ethics of journalism, the morality. I would focus on achieving objectivity, even though it's supposed to be impossible. I think we could at least strive for it. And we could really build a program here that could make this state stand strong among all the other states. But it's a matter of getting back to basics and building on a foundation that was laid here that was very pure in its original concept. And that was the two things that we were the fourth estate. It was set up voluntarily by courageous men and women to provide a fourth look at what government was doing at all levels and to let the rest of us know what was going on on a day-to-day basis in those governments. Very critical role. That's what excited me. It brought me here from the business school at Denver University, where I also had scholarships. I was drawn by those ideals, the two ideals, the other being that we are here only to hold up a mirror to society. And that concept dates clear back to Elizabethan theater. And the idea in that time was that theater was a means for letting society see itself clearly and without distortion. And then the American media picked up that phrase, and people like William Allen White, he commenced his wonderful career by saying, I can proudly say that I held up that mirror throughout my life. And I'd like to see us to get back to that. Today, we distort the image. We put ourselves in it. We try to become the news ourselves. And we try to take our mores and our lifestyles and our personal values and turn our publications into propaganda sheets. That is not news, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Sander, Director of Marketing for the City of Denver and 74 journalism grad. And I guess I'd like to sort of comment on the broad perspective of marketing, media, and journalistic careers that are out there. I started off as a journalist working for the Boulder Daily Camera, spent some time working in public relations, advertising, marketing before John Hickenlooper appointed me 3 years ago. And I guess what I see in the world today is journalism is the foundation of a lot of careers, whether that's web writing, whether that's messaging, whether that's communications, and no other school, to my knowledge, at this campus teaches those disciplines. Communications does not, marketing, I spent some time here at graduate school in marketing does not. So the basic skills that are required for many careers, whether they be interactive, whether they be marketing, whether they be media, are only taught in a journalistic environment. And I guess that's my challenge to you. Where does that belong? And how does the journalism, how do the skills that are currently taught in the journalism school, where do they fit in a campus environment? I do not believe they belong in communications. I don't believe they belong in marketing. And to my knowledge, other evolved journalism programs around the country are not being discontinued. They are evolving to include the basic talents that are required to have careers in a much broader spectrum of endeavors.
Thank you.
Steve, we probably crossed paths several times. I'm a 1975 grad of the J School at the University of Colorado. I received a Bachelor of Science in Journalism and a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology over 4 years. And I am grateful to see representatives from other schools, because that was one of the most important aspects of my journalism school education, was the requirement that students in the School of Journalism have a broad-based education. We were required to take courses in sciences, in political science, in sociology, in psychology, mathematics, statistics. That was my downfall. But that was an important aspect of our education. And as a journalist, there's nothing more important than to have an understanding of all those various areas throughout the university that we learned. You cannot write a story about heart transplants without knowing some basic biology. You cannot write a story about the recession or unemployment without having some basic understanding of economics. You can't write a story about a serial killer without having a little bit of study in psychology and sociology of deviance. I mean, that was very important. And I would hope that in whatever reconfiguration you make, that you make it a broad-based education, so we are bringing people to this discipline that don't just know how to write a good sentence. But we also need to have people who know how to write a good sentence. My local paper today, the headline says, "What's CMT?" Subhead, Disease Givens Awareness Week Status. Okay, the headline on the opinion page says, "Car are safer, but drivers can do their part." Car are safer. Okay, and then we had a story about the robbery in Lafayette, and a paragraph says, "The townhome is within sight of Centaurus High School, but sight is spelled S-I-T-E. So we do also need people who can write a comprehensive paragraph, who can proofread. Basic English skills, Mr. Cox, basic English skills are very important. And we do need to incorporate the new media, but people who write tweets and text messages, and I know this from my own children who are 28 and 25, everything is abbreviated messages. They don't learn how to write. I mean, and my younger son graduated magna cum laude from San Francisco State University with a degree in psychology, but he still tweets and texts, and there is a basic need for English. Okay. This program does have a good reputation. I graduated in 1975, and I still have people say, "Oh, you went to the University of Colorado." Since then, I've lived in Kansas and New York and San Francisco, but the reputation of this university is wonderful. Whatever configuration you make, I reiterate this gentleman's comments, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. One of the very best courses I had in journalism, and some of you may remember him, Floyd Basquette, Journalism, Law, and Ethics. There is very little ethic in journalism these days. I'm very disappointed in where journalism has gone. But it's important for people who are providing information to the community, to the world, to the nation, that they be ethical, that they look at different sides of the issue, and that they try, in as far as possible, to remove themselves from the story and report the story, and not just their fantasies and ideology. And that needs to be part of whatever configuration this school makes. We hold a sacred responsibility to inform people. One last comment. My husband and I just moved back here from San Francisco, and I love being home in Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name's Cameron Nash. I graduated just this spring, this was 2010. I was news editorial, and I also had the honor of being the editor-in-chief of the student media. As a recent graduate, I can say that I still got the idea that everyone's talking about here tonight. I understand the importance of telling the story and having people's voices heard and being that watchdog and how important that is in democracy in our society. And I believe that core values are still very much there. However, I believe that the journalism school has very much lost its soul. The fire in its heart has gone out, and that is what I challenge you to find. Walking in there, I don't really see that much enthusiasm among staff and faculty. My minor was in the Atlas program, and every day when I'd walk into those classes, the teachers were enthusiastic, they were excited. I would talk to them for hours after their office hours had completed about various topics in the degree, learning more out of class than in class sometimes, just by their enthusiasm and willingness to teach. And I feel that is severely lacking at the journalism school right now. Walking in, it looks like they're as unhappy to be there as some students are who went out for Thirsty Thursday the night before. My very first recitation, freshman, 8 a.m., Friday morning, really excited. Relatively speaking, of course. And the very first thing my TA said was, "I don't want to be here any more than you do, so let's get over this." And that was pretty much my introduction to my first journalism class. That is a quick way to kill passion in young students. As the chief of the paper, we would have these eager young students come to us, the editors, for guidance and teachers, because sometimes they didn't find that guidance they were looking for from their professors, and that was a role that we ended up filling for them instead. So, it's hard to see such an important aspect of our society be taught without real care and real enthusiasm. I think it's kind of time to clean house, find that soul and reinvigorate that fire, so students want to be there, want to understand the importance of their job, and want to tell that story and not feel like that they're already stuck in a job that they'll not succeed in. It feels like I'm working with people who are jaded, and it's like an office space, but in the journalism school, they're just not enthusiastic and not excited. And that is not a situation a student should be facing every day, especially when they pay $20,000 a year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ashley Hertzberger. I graduated with Cameron in May, and I feel like I bring the perspective of a freshman in high school right now who might come to the University of Colorado in 4 years as a freshman and maybe wants to go into journalism. When I came here as a freshman, I had a passion for journalism, and I was really excited, and I still have that passion for journalism today, but I don't think that going through the J school helped it in any way. I started as news ed, hated reporting, and switched to media studies, and I love media studies, but I think that the news ed and the media studies and all the other sequences offered can become so much more in the future. I also agree that journalism and its core values are extremely important and should not be lost in a reconfiguration of this school. But I do want to say that my favorite class at CU was a communications class I took with Professor Stan Dietz. It was by far the best class I'd ever taken, the most challenging, and it didn't compare by even a close bit to any journalism class I took. The one class I wish I could have taken but wasn't able to was a marketing class in the school, in the business school. Just because I'm a journalism student, I was in the journalism school, I'm not allowed to take business classes. My passion is public relations. CU doesn't offer a public relations sequence. They do offer two classes, and you can graduate with it on your degree. But even I didn't do that, but that's my passion. I feel like there is so much opportunity on this campus, and an integration of a school of information that includes all of those different classes: communication, business, new media. What I don't have that I need now that I'm looking for jobs, I don't know HTML. I don't know how to use Photoshop. I don't have the business acumen that I need to succeed in public relations and in marketing. That's what I need to be successful now as a graduate in 2010, and I'm struggling. I'm looking at all of those job applications and trying to find interviews and looking at what the qualifications are, and I only have half of them. So I think that an integration with new media and the core values of journalism would be so valuable to this school, and I envision a school that is cutting edge at the very prime of new media journalism education, and I do believe that there is such a thing as new media journalism education, even though so much of academia is 20 years behind its times. But I also think that as a new graduate, if I wanted to give money back to this school, I'd be hard-pressed to give it in its current form. But a College of Information that's cutting edge, integrates new media and core journalism values, and lets kids take classes in business and in communication and everywhere else, I would love to support that program. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joe Hannell. I'm class of 95 news editorial. I can't speak with the same recent experience and authority as some of the younger alumni, but I know when I was here in the early 90s, I was pretty dismayed at the lack of support among the faculty for the news editorial sequence, and it was at that time the student newspaper was almost shut down, and we thought, what's a journalism school without a student newspaper? It's survived and is now online, which is just a perfect place for it, actually. I just want to echo in the strongest possible terms what everybody else has said here tonight about the needing to preserve the values of teaching how to do dispassionate public affairs reporting and investigation. I'm the state government reporter for the Durango Herald right now. I work out of the state capitol. On a good day, there's maybe 8 or 10 of us in the Capitol. There are 100 lawmakers, probably 500 lobbyists, spin doctors all over the place. It takes skills and it takes education to wade through all of the half-truths and outright lies to actually figure out what's going on in this state. And as friends of the University of Colorado or its employees, I mean, the state legislature is getting ready to really do a number here. So you should know as well as anybody how important it is to have trained people to keep an objective eye on what's going on with our government. The thing that really concerns me is this bifurcated process where there's this committee is in charge of the discontinuance, and there's somebody else who's on a different deadline that tells us what we're going to replace it with. That to me feels, I'm not questioning the motives at all about anyone on this committee, but somebody else set the deadlines. And it feels a little bit to some of us, it feels a little bit to myself, a little bit like somehow the fix is in, and we're going to do this study, and then there's somebody else who's going to do another study, and we'll let you know later on what's happening. I guess that's something I've been keeping an eye on the government here for a while, and that's something that this is, it's always nice to impanel a committee to have them do sometimes unpalatable work. So I hope I'm off base about that, and definitely I don't want to question any of the motivations of anyone here. I really appreciate for your dedication, being here tonight and giving up your evening, and hearing us all out. they don't teach manners too well in the journalism school, and I hope they never do. So thank you.
If I could just say one thing about the deadlines. So you said who sets the deadlines. So the Board of Regents set the deadlines in the abstract for this process. So it was not that the deadlines were set for the review of the School of Journalism and Mass Communication. There is, by Regent policy, a set of deadlines imposed on the program review process. And there's a good reason for that. Universities move at glacial paces. It takes university a real long time to decide anything. And what you don't want to do when you raise the question of are you going to discontinue a program or not, you don't want students, faculty, alums out there dangling for a long time. This process will be done in a, what probably seems to you all like a long time, but for the university is very fast schedule. 60 days again for this committee, then 30, 30, 30. So, by the beginning by February 1st, we'll know what the president has recommended to the board. So that the good thing about those deadlines is that it will keep everyone to task, and it will make sure that things don't drag on forever. The process itself isn't, maybe I'm naive, but I don't believe the process is a setup. In fact, what the process does is the process is part of a shared governance model that the university operates under. There are universities that have shut down programs, say classics departments, without consultation with the faculty and students and alums. This process mandates that this group listen to the constituencies on campus. Obviously the proof is in the pudding. We'll see how it all works out. It's important to know that both the report of this committee, once it is accepted by the provost, will be made public, and the report of the other committee, once it's accepted by the provost, will be made public, so that you will be able to keep an eye on the operations. Everybody understands the awkwardness of the two committee process. A decision was made. You all have the right to question the decision that running everything under the program discontinuance process would have created a kind of negative atmosphere. So there was a decision to split off the exploratory part into another committee so that we could all get excited about the future while these people were left with the more unpleasant task. But surely one could have imagined processes that would work better. This is the process we're working through, and I believe, at least, that we are serious about listening to you as well as to other people that have been speaking to this committee and will speak to the other committee.
I would want to start then with more of a holistic question, because are we best, is it best that we direct our more broader feelings about the where the school needs to go and where the program needs to go to this other committee? Or
well, I hope you will also express it to the other committee, but we're happy to hear it. We're happy to hear whatever you want us to hear, but you will have an opportunity to address the other committee. You can address it via email, or again, there will be open sessions for that committee.
Okay. Well, I'll be really brief. My name's Kirk Sigler. I'm a graduate from 2000 in broadcast journalism. I've spent most of the previous 7 or 8 years in public radio, and most recently currently out of Denver. I agree with a lot of that's been said, but I think it's important just to drive home the fundamentals of what I think has been said, and that is, it sounds as if we do need to take a hard look at what the program is offering right now, the curriculum and whatnot. But as we do that, I think it's important that we keep those fundamentals in place, and whether it's the name journalism, so long as we keep it in there, I think we need to make sure that that is the core mission of the school and of the curriculum. We have so much media out there right now, but when it comes right down to it, we of course need to know how to tell a story, interview people. Well, I think it's all been said, but interview people, tell a great story, investigate, all of these Fourth Estate principles, that needs to be at the basis of, in my opinion, where this goes. So whatever you call it, so long as that is the fundamental core mission. So.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Dwight Stevens. I was in broadcasting, so I'm afraid of open mics. I know what they can do to you. I'd like to ask a couple of questions before I start. You were talking about some people wrote to the Chancellor and asked them to investigate and so and so. Who were these people?
So it is all schools and colleges on the campus, including and some departments, have constituted advisory boards or advisory councils. They are made up of friends of whichever unit one's talking about. I used to run the Center for Humanities and the Arts. It had an advisory board. They are sometimes alums. They are sometimes financial supporters. In the case of the School of Journalism, they include active professionals. So it is a group that both helps advise the unit about its relationship to the world outside the university and about how we can serve that world better. It does help with development. That is, it does help with raising money for the university. So this was a group of people that meets with the dean and the faculty probably a couple times a year, twice a year. So that's who this group was.
Okay. Are there other schools that are under consideration for whatever the word is?
Discontinue at the University of Colorado at Boulder?
Yes.
No. So the only current program discontinuance review is this one. So, and a question that's been raised. There's a conversation about what's the relationship between journalism and the Atlas program that a number of the students have spoken about. They've asked, why isn't Atlas under program discontinuance? Atlas is not a tenure-bearing academic unit. It is a administrative structure. The Chancellor could close the Atlas program tomorrow if he wanted to. If the unit holds tenured faculty, then if you are talking about altering that entity in a major way, you have to go through this kind of open process that we're engaged in.
Okay. It really bothers me to hear some of these recent graduates get up and talk about the school that we who graduated in the 60s, as John said, I think there was only 68 of us or something like that in the whole School of Journalism. And the professors were, they would meet you at night even, to discuss things. And so I'm sorry to hear that the professors of the School of Journalism have deteriorated, their attitude has deteriorated to the point that the students no longer feel happy in this pursuit of their degree there. So maybe management could be a problem too, right? That we're talking about here. Motivation. You can tell I've been out there in the business. I use those words, motivation and management. I think John and I were talking, we had to have, I think, 28 hours of journalism courses out of, I believe it was 120. We can't really remember.
Sounds right.
130, was it? No, 120. 120. So you can see, we had to have a distributive education. We had to go out and take courses in political science and psychology, and as this one lady was discussing. Business, I was really amazed to hear you couldn't take a business course, because I took a number of them, and economic courses and things like that. And the idea being that in order to be a good functioning journalist, that you had to know something about a little bit of everything. mostly you had to dig out the facts, and I'm having a hard time here tonight with those facts. I can't seem to pin them down. That committee was talking about, out there in the real world, a horse is a camel is a horse designed by a committee, so it's just really hard to get around what's going on here for people who are used to dealing in facts. I keep missing them here. But at any rate, I disagree with David Susskind that I don't believe the medium is the message in this case. And it really doesn't matter what medium you use to deliver the news, whether it's quill and ink or the internet. What truly matters is the professional ethics that we've been talking about here tonight. Who's going to teach the professional ethics and the legality and the history of journalism that was really drummed into our head by our old professors? That's, whether you're doing it digitally or with quill and ink, it doesn't matter. You need to constantly address those professional ethics, I believe, in any kind of education involving journalism. Now, I don't know what you're going to call it other than journalism after you get around to making up these names, but I helped to write my first computer program in 1967 here at the university in a marketing class, marketing research class. I had my first personal computer in 1980 when they had to build it specially for me, and I had to use machine language to communicate. That was just before Al Gore invented the internet. And I know, I've been around that business a long time, and I know the only thing constant about that industry is change. So I hope you consider this, that change, whenever you consider the curriculum that you're about to change, because, these people that are bloggers today, I don't know what they're going to be doing when they get dumped on the trash heap that the Betamax got dumped on, when the next generation of the XYZ phone comes out, I'm not sure that digital journalism is the wave of the future. I hear that a lot, and I've seen that something solid has to be kept as a record throughout society since we started, chiseling on stone. So I believe that there's going to be something similar to a newspaper in the future, even though today everybody's saying it's in decline. If that's the reason why we're considering eliminating the School of Journalism, I don't know why we're still teaching mathematics, because I haven't used algebra or trig once since I left the university. I don't know. I haven't gone out and bought a piece of fine art in over 5 years, and I know that a lot of people here may never have, so we're still teaching fine art, aren't we? And I know that the publishing business is in ruin right now, and I'm pretty sure you're still teaching English Lit. So don't use the decline of the newspaper as a reason for destroying the School of Journalism. That's all I have to say.
My name is Buffy Guilfoyle, and I'm a 1972 graduate. And like Joe, I started at the Durango Herald, and it's kind of interesting that this discussion is going on here now, because on Friday, the publishers of the Herald will be receiving the Jean Otto Friend of Freedom Award for their dedication to defending and preserving freedom of information for Colorado citizens. And so I think that there is something really important that the School of Journalism can bring to Colorado and to society in general. Also, like Ashley, I'm really interested in the public relations side because I work in external affairs for the federal government. And we're going through some of the same questions there that are being looked at here. And I think that the digital media are here to stay. I don't subscribe to a newspaper myself, but I look online. But I think the university needs to lead the way in showing how to use those things, how to integrate all the different skills that are needed out there to get the information out there as well as possible. I work in the emergency area, and I know there are things going on in other parts of the university having to do with using social media for emergency information. Well, the journalism school should be in on that too. And the journalism school should be someplace that I can look when I'm trying to figure out, okay, I have to use my old journalism skills to be able to write something really worthwhile, but then I need to use the social media to point people to it on the internet and that kind of thing. And I feel like there's a real opportunity for leadership in this area, whatever you want to call it. So. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Megan Sobel, and I'm a 2009 J-School graduate in the advertising sequence. I went straight into a graduate program at the University of Denver in international media that I just graduated from. And I just wanted to say, I'm not sure if I went to the same J-School as you guys did. Not only did I have required marketing courses, but I had some of the most amazing professors that were so enthusiastic, so intelligent, just mind-blowing. They were so influential, will stay with me forever. They would bend over backwards to accommodate whatever classes I wanted to help me with problems outside of school, to help me figure out my graduate program. That I think the committee having the mentality that you'll kind of reevaluate the program and hope that the tenured faculty will come to it, I think that's a great disservice to the university as a whole. I think you need to take into consideration what they think and do whatever you can to keep them. There are J schools all over the country that will snatch up these professors so quickly that it'll be a disservice to current students, future students, and alumni. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dennis Huspany. I'm a 1991 graduate with a news editorial degree, and I'm not going to go over anything that's been said because we've heard it. I'm hoping they'll keep the basics. What I do wanted to throw my 2 cents in was I guess the sense of pride that I have having a journalism degree from CU. It's one of the best things on my resume, you know, and I just that thought, discontinuance, you know, kind of hurt a little bit. And that we're hearing a lot of motion here today. I think that everybody feels the same way. So I think these committees hopefully will do a good job of keeping the journalism and the basics that is necessary to teach people how to be good members of the Fourth Estate. But what I would encourage everyone, the committees to look at too, which I'm sure have been talked about in some form or fashion and may be happening right now, but what needs to happen is there needs to be incorporated strategies for gainful employment in areas other than newspaper and television, obviously. And again, I'm directing things more towards the news editorial side as opposed to advertising or broadcasting. And the contacts that I got from CU got me my first job in newspapers. Beth Geddard was a saint as far as that's concerned. So I think that needs to stay, but with other different businesses than just newspapers and TV. You need to get graduates of your J school or whatever it ends up being, thinking about journalism in a business model that's going to work, that's going to make money, that's going to invest, that people are going to want to invest in. I've been a part of this Colorado Public News. We've tried to launch a nonprofit investigative journalism site under the Channel 12 KBDI umbrella, and we can't get anybody to donate to that. You know, I've basically just been giving it for free, and once you get some credibility going and get some stories, then maybe it would snowball. But I think there needs to be new ways of thinking about how journalism can be a viable business again, and I think it can be. And so, as opposed to just, you know, having people that take one side or the other and just be the spokesman for that one side, I do believe that there is a business model where journalism will work. And just the final thing that I want to add and say is, I do think that this process is long overdue, and it sounds very painful, the discontinuance, but I also hope and pray that something really good comes out of this, and that we have, if it's not a school of journalism, a journalism program of some kind that incorporates all these things and are going to send ambassadors out to the Fourth Estate in whatever realm and do this school and this state and this community proud. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Volker. I graduated in 2001 with a broadcast degree. Basically, I always knew I wanted to come to CU to be a journalist. I didn't even apply at another school. I fell in love with the university, and it's what I wanted to do. I knew it. And basically, the broad education allowed me to go do a double major in photography. I was able to pursue photojournalism. I did do broadcasts, but I went into newspapers. And I'm just shocked and dismayed to see, to open up the Denver Post one morning and see that journalism school might be gone. I think it's wrong. You need to keep it. If we're not going to value our news product, we're not going to have any more journalists. And we need to save it. We create history. If you look at the old newspapers that were in the mining camps, they're our history. And the internet is forever. So, and when we do bad headlines, errors, and if we don't value that, like the lady that brought in the headlines from, I think, the Lafayette paper, that's a disgrace. We need to have a solid basis. I had great professors, but there were problems when I was in the broadcast program. We had 3 cameras for a whole broadcast class, which I thought was ridiculous. But I stuck it out and I graduated. I mean, I had wonderful professors. Some of the teachers that helped with documentaries and just trying to do the production team. And people I went to school with, they just really had a love for the program. So I don't do newspapers anymore, but the basis has allowed me to move into technical writing and proposal writing, and also, open records, and even to do freelance work. Like this summer I got to interview a minor, and if I hadn't gone to the J school, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So I think you need to keep the basis with all the good ethics, all the good writing classes, the broad education basis, and also you need to integrate all the new media. Figure out a way to do it, because everything is going online, and I think you also need to work more with the fine arts or the Atlas program to do film production and photography, because that's a big part of it too. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Phil Kergel, and I graduated in 1975 from Mass Communications. I'm on the dark side. I work in advertising. So, but, listening tonight, I'm not going to be redundant and say how important journalism is. I think everybody knows that and believes that, and it is a sacred thing to be able to teach ethical journalism. But what I'd like to talk about just for a second is in San Francisco, I've worked in advertising in New York and also in San Francisco on the creative side. And lo and behold, about 6 months ago, I think it was, I picked up the New York Times and I see on the cover of the business section a story about the digital boot camp here at CU and how it is like revolutionizing advertising and media education. And that one article, I'm telling you, that one article really helped put CU on the map. My colleagues in San Francisco were all talking about it, and I read about it in Ad Age. It's really made its mark on the advertising side of things. Why has it made its mark? It's made its mark because somebody, and I don't know who, in the department or a committee, like this committee, was smart enough to reach out to some of the best and brightest thought leaders in the advertising business. Goodby, Berlin, and Silverstein, one of the best, most creative ad agencies in the world. Crispin Porter, who's right in your own backyard here, talking to these thought leaders and saying, okay, what is it that most advertising programs are not offering that you would like a graduate to have certain skills when they graduate that would be invaluable to you? And hence, a program was created based on input from these real thought leaders. And look at the program today. It's phenomenal. So, 2 points. Number one, if this committee takes to heart, and I can't imagine that it would not take to heart, the importance of journalism in today's world of information, which is as vital. I challenge this committee to say that journalism is any less important than things like environmental science, where the environmental scales tip in the balance. If journalism is not done correctly and information is not imparted correctly for us to know what's going on in the world, there's going to be some major scale tipping by not having the information necessary to be proactive about doing the right thing in our society. So I challenge the committee to place journalism at a level of the highest programs at this university, number one. Number two is, if you do that, this can be a phenomenal journalism program. And how? By involving thought leaders in journalism from major publications, thought leaders who are changing with the times. Look at all the magazines now that are developing Kindle programs, iPod programs, publishing online, blogging. I mean, the new media is just exploding. And with these thought leaders on board versus us doing this thing in a vacuum, I'm sending up a flare gun here. Do not do this in a vacuum. Do it right. Bring thought leaders in. And this program, in 2 or 3 years from now, we'll be sitting here and going, remember the day.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Barbara Darling. I'm a 74 graduate from the journalism school in the broadcast sequence. And as others have said, we certainly appreciate the involvement of the committee, and thank you for taking time this evening. I had a couple of questions. The first is, when the discontinuance has been initiated in the past, have there been instances where the vote was no?
So the current region policy under which we're operating has never been activated. It's only 5 years old. The last time the university discontinued a program was prior to that being created. It was a different kind of process. It was an interdisciplinary telecommunications program that was discontinued as a tenure-bearing unit in the College of Engineering and recreated as a different kind of entity. So there are no there are no prototypes for the process we're going under now.
If the vote were no in this instance, then what would happen to the School of Journalism and Mass Communication?
So if at the end of the day, the Board of Regents, well, it might not even reach the Board of Regents if it was a no at the campus, but nothing would, I mean, the school exists today. The school exists as an accredited School of Journalism and Mass Communication until the Board of Regents says it doesn't.
Thank you. And I had a few comments. I got most of the way through the 66-page report that was put together on the program, and just felt some concern that the first part of it was so driven about faculty interests, and it seemed as though somehow the report had lost sight of our students and what kind of professional careers they're getting through the program and what their futures look like. And when I read about what the suggestion was for the next step or a replacement, it seemed as though it was such a hodgepodge that you were trying to include absolutely every discipline across campus, and that the journalism aspect of it sounded to me as though it might be a course here and a course there, but it seemed to be completely lost in trying to be collegial and bring everybody in the whole campus into an iteration of what we have going now. And I found that very confusing. I didn't really understand it, and if that's the way it's heading, then I'd rather us work with what we currently have and try to improve that.
So to be clear, that report was released by the provost because there was a concern that it had not been released. Its release does not mean that the campus has endorsed it. Had the campus endorsed that report, we wouldn't have the exploratory committee being convened this semester to try to figure out where we're going. We would know where we're going. That report provides some valuable information for the committees that are working this semester. It does not determine the future where we're headed.
Thank you. And just as a comment, I'm dismayed that an advisory board would have so much influence in driving some of this decision and yet have such a lack of oversight that in the last X number of years, say the last 5, it couldn't have made more solid recommendations that might have saved and guided the School of Journalism and Mass Communication. And I would like to direct that same disparaging type of comment, if I may, to if there was a faculty committee review 7 years ago of the School of Mass Communication and Journalism, why wasn't that more forward thinking? It just seems as though this is so reactive, and it should feel more proactive, and that is some of my concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
How's it going? My name is Jeff Todd. I'm an 07 graduate of the School of Journalism and Mass Communication. I didn't actually finish any of the tracks, but I went into broadcasting. I'm currently a reporter for the CBS affiliate in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I had a question for you guys. I mean, how cut and dry is this discontinuance review, and then do you just give up a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the regents? Because it kind of sounds like, listening to the older alumni and the younger alumni, that there needs to be this foundation that's in place, held here, but maybe the inside of the armory needs to be gutted and remodeled.
So there's two aspects to your question. One, does it have to be yes or no? No, the committee has the ability to create contingent recommendations. If the university's headed in this direction, do this. If you were going to do this, do that. And it is also possible to make a recommendation to continue all of the current degree programs, but under a different administrative model. So the committee has a wide latitude in terms of the recommendations it makes. Of course, at the end of the day, a decision to discontinue or not is by the board would be a yes or no decision. The assumption is that decision would not be made in a vacuum, but would be made in the context of whatever other new entity would be created.
I feel like a lot of the things I have to say are probably going to be more towards this exploratory committee, but these kids who just graduated, I'm going to agree with you. The professors that I had were extremely helpful. I think the best class I probably had was media law, which was taught by this guy in the back. And I worked in the industry about 3 years, and every newspaper person I've met over the age of 25 is jaded and angry. So maybe it might have just been the track you were in. I don't know. But like I said earlier, I mean, it kind of sounds like the answer here might be keeping this foundation, but really looking at these new proactive ways to kind of teach, methods throughout the industry. Right now, I call myself a reporter, but I'm what everybody says is a one-man band. So I shoot all my own stuff, I tweet, and I post web stories at the end of the day. And my biggest problem with that is that in the broadcasting track, I only learn broadcasting, and every day I have to rely on my community college teachings of writing for the school newspapers. So to me, I think that one answer might be, we're talking about adding business classes and learning biology and sociology. It also seems like as this industry is moving that we need to learn the other forms of the industry and not just keep one track. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I talk loud enough, so I'm not going to use the microphone. I'm a recent graduate, fairly recent. I am going to represent the social media side because every minute of every single day I use my core journalism principle values of reporting, of investigation, interviewing, everything I put out. I'm a professional in what I do. I use all mediums, and every single thing I do every day all goes back to what I learned in the journalism school. And I just graduated 3 years ago, and it was a pretty big feat for me. I was a non-traditional student. I worked in technology before. Yeah, there were a couple of things I wished I had, but some of the guys that cared the most, some of those core classes, the mass communication law class. There were so many times when I need to draw out a picture online, but if I hadn't learned those principles or some of those different things, I might have an issue. Those are some of the things you need to take into consideration. That is a crucial class to keep, because there are times when I do have to access information and I'm not sure of what I need to do. I just, you pick up some notes, pick my brain, think about it. I'm sure I could send Professor Volker an email on that one that had. So those are some of the things that please consider. The reporting, there might be just 5-10 key classes that you keep. Of course, we need to evolve. I'll echo everything we say around here, or everybody's been saying, but please consider some of those crucial things that you'll always need. Your basic writing, your reporting, your investigative reporting, your law. I know that there are certain classes that you actually have to put into this whole, new information and media structure. I also blog as well, but it all seems to pivot on what I learned in this school. And I'm still paying for my degree, by the way, so it would be nice to be able to keep some type of journalism in it, in however way you want to spin it. Just, remember those things when you're creating the school. I really would appreciate it, because my career actually depends on it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Holiday. I graduated December 2006. I was news editorial. The School of Journalism taught me that to be a good reporter, you need to be armed with a sense of righteous indignation. You need to be fearless, you need to be a good communicator, you need to be able to think on your feet. I use those skills every day. I'm a wildland firefighter. In my industry, I can say communication is the difference between life and death. Thinking on my feet, same thing. I'm one of 2 girls on a 10-man crew. There's 10 guys, 2 of us girls. I love my guys like they're my brothers, but sometimes I need a sense of righteous indignation to deal with them. But they did let me out of work 2 hours early to come here because they knew it was important to me. So I guess what I'm saying is our life paths can take us many different places, but I know I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for the school. So please keep this good tradition of teaching those skills.
Thank you.
I came in a bit late, so I'm not sure if I missed some people's comments, but I'm here to talk about the graduate programs within the school. I did my MA here in Integrated Marketing Communication in 1999, finished a PhD at the school as well. So I've worked with faculty on the applied side and the more theoretical side. I found the school to be an excellent environment for giving wing to research interests, to motivations that people had. And it's one of the things that I sit and I hear a lot of talk about skills, about contemporary technologies and how to use those things and what to do with them. That's great, but there's two kinds of skills that go on here too. There's critical thinking skills and the contextualization of those media within a larger social order. And so when we talk about what skills are necessary today, what skills are forward-looking today, I think it would do the mission of education a disservice to forego continued education in critical thought and looking at the way in which we think about the media, the impacts the media have, and the way in which those things will develop over time. So not only do we need perhaps certain applied skills from that standpoint, we need to think about thinking as a skill. And the school has a lot to offer. The faculty have a lot to offer. And when people talk about a lack of technical focus, I'd encourage you to look at some of the dissertations and master's theses that have come out of the school over the past 10 years or so. I've been hanging around since '98. So, yeah, in fact, we talk about Atlas. I helped put together, as part of the journalism school, the foundational course for Atlas, Future of Technology, Art, and Media, and help teach it. And so the skill sets come from a faculty pool that is diverse and highly skilled, and that needs to be borne in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that good? I'm Cameron Lewis. I'm a 1983 graduate, the only one representing the 80s, I guess. School of Journalism, News Editing. Just a few things I wanted to say real quickly. I'm very proud of my journalism degree from CU, and it shaped my career, it shaped my life. I have worked in the field, and I hope that Ashley is still here. My degree's in news editing. That became the reason that I was hired in public information repeatedly. The first 20 years of my career, I never went looking for a job. Jobs always came looking for me. And it was because of my experience in reporting that did that. As you can tell from my voice, I'm more comfortable writing for other people and hearing their words and not my own, but let me continue on real quickly. There are rapid changes in the field of communication. I get that. I have had to learn those in my field. It's not easy at my age, and I respect people up there who know that I went to journalism school with a manual typewriter, Royal. All right, yay. And went through IBM. Computers didn't exist when we were in journalism school. This is all new. But we learn all those things. What we learned in the journalism school were the things that are the reputation of journalists. You learn integrity, diligence, respect, ethics, truth, and justice. Those are important things. Whatever we end up with, how you evolve this, I'd hate to see the journalism major lost. And I can understand combining this into another school or not. I would prefer not. I would like there to be a school of journalism. But what I was sitting here thinking are two important thoughts. One is an English degree is not a journalism degree. And the second thing is journalists give a voice to those who can't speak for themselves. And if we lose journalism, we lose that voice. And that's very important. So I'd like you to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we've been sitting here a long time. I think everybody's had a chance to speak. We really appreciate your coming out. These meetings are very important to the committee. Your input is important to us. If you have other things you'd like to say, please email us at input@colorado.edu. Again, let your colleagues, friends, fellow alums know they can contact us as well. Do look for information about open sessions for the exploratory committee. They will most likely take place during the month of October. They will also want to hear from you about your ideas moving forward. One gentleman spoke the fact that we need to listen to the best minds in the industry and the field, and one of the charges to them is to go out and contact people outside the university in industry, as well as looking at programs at other universities, but they'll obviously want to hear from the members of our own community. So thank you all for coming. Have a good evening.